Okay, got it. Okay, so do not refuse an application. So let's say you have seen an applicant many times and you've determined, I'm done seeing this applicant. I'm no longer going to take their application. You are out of line with statute. All right. So don't refuse an application. Refusing can also be just simply not being accessible, which we have a problem in the state of Indiana with townships not being accessible. And we hear about it at the State House. Okay, so our lawmakers are the ones that get the phone call from disgruntled people saying, I can't find my trustee. And I know you're not on this call. I'm talking to people that don't take the effort to come learn, I believe. So don't refuse an application, and always make yourself accessible to those people that want to apply and request assistance. Don't do this on a phone call basis. Always have a completed application before you make a determination. That is a statutory requirement, and you're out of line if you don't. Too many are taking phone calls, asking, what was your income last month? And saying, you're over my guidelines, I can't help you. That is out of line. And eventually we're going to see some of these things pressed in court. We have seen in the past, I know of agencies that talk about it all the time about taking up a case. And it, frankly, I think it probably should happen in some cases. But don't do your investigation on a phone call.
The only time I would recommend it not taking an application, and even that person can push the envelope and say no, they want to make an application, is if you know that they are not a resident of your township. You can highly discourage them, say, hey, let me refer you back to your legal place, let me get you in contact with your township. And that's because that's just saving you time and them time. But if they push it and they want to make an application, you have to take an application.
Very good. Do not refuse to assist because you're out of money. This is a bad thing. It's very clear within state law that this is not a reason for denial. And it's been tested in court. You can see here the court case is called Lindbergh Co. versus Center Township. Center Township lost on this case. They quit giving assistance because they were out of money, or they started just giving a little bit instead of actually helping people with their needs. There are townships that will say, okay, our max each year is $200. And once you hit that, we no longer will help you. And they give us a reason, we don't have enough money. This is something we need to talk about one-on-one if you're in that situation, because there are answers. There are answers for you. Probably not something you want to hear necessarily, but we have to find the money. We cannot deny on that basis. Also, do not deny assistance based upon the number of requests. Again, we have townships that only take applications from a household once a year or twice a year. And that's simply not how township assistance is set up. So that is why we have an application for continuing assistance that's good for 30 days. So don't limit the number of requests that a household can make in a year or in a month. It doesn't mean that you are obligated to help them every time they apply, but to set a limit on how many times they may ask is clearly out of line. Something else that's been tested in court is drug testing. I had a township just a few years ago that was insistent that the trustee was insistent that she be able to demand drug testing. And we ran this through not only our ITA attorney, but we ran this question through a lot of legal minds and concluded that we have no grounds as townships to demand drug testing. And so this trustee wanted to go ahead and do it, and she did, and she ended up in court and she lost. So that's why it's on this list.
Someone did ask the question. They said, oh, never mind. You already got it.
Okay. Here's another one that was tested in court that I still hear about today. Townships that refuse to make mortgage payments, or they require an eviction before granting shelter assistance. Other than telling you don't do it, you can see here Van Buskirk over Wayne Township, and the township lost. You cannot refuse to make a mortgage payment just on the basis that it's a mortgage. And again, if you do assist with a mortgage, you may place a lien on their home, so that the township can recoup that upon the sale of the property. Then the township needs to release that assistance lien, and there's been some trouble with that. So always take care of liens properly and release them at the appropriate time. Okay.
Debbie, Vigo County had a question that says, should you set a limit of assistance in your guidelines? I want to touch on that because I think it goes in this section. You cannot do that. You cannot set a limits that cannot be verified or documented. If you go in and you set a limit, say the client's in, their rent is $1,000 a month, and you tell that client, the maximum I'm going to assist you with is $500. That's our maximum. That's all I'm going to help you. That is illegal. You have to be able to document where you found the amount that you would pay. For Center Township and Howard County, we go by fair market guidelines, which are basically HUD standards, so that we can help with the maximum amount of rental assistance for a client. If you're going to say that you don't have the money to help with more than that, you have to be able to justify why you don't and why you can't help that person.
The other option that you have, other than using fair market rents developed by HUD, is to do a survey of available rentals in your township, which is how Delaware Township does it. So you would contact the landlords that you know of, typically in apartment complexes, but you would do a survey to find out what is the average rent in my township for a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, things like that. And then you can place a maximum rent in your guidelines. Maximum food, if you're doing food assistance, the maximum can be lined up with SNAP benefits and things like that. But like Connie said, if you do not have a basis on which to put a limit, you can't put a limit. So it needs to be based on something, right? It can't be an arbitrary, in her example, $500 is the most we'll pay for rent, when in your township, the average rent is $800. We're not bill payers, we're service providers. So you have to get your mind out of thinking about the bill and think about the household and where they're going to live. Household comes in, makes application, they're 7 months behind, they're about to be evicted. I'm probably not going to touch that 7 months, but I might help them move to an affordable place and start over. Yes, walk away from a lease, because it's not my job to catch them up in something that they cannot sustain. It's my job to see that they have shelter and that it's something that they can sustain going forward, right? The exception to that would be someone that's disabled, or there are other circumstances to be considered. But again, a frequently asked question is, what do? I have someone, that's going to be evicted and they're X number of dollars behind. Well, the example I just gave you is an option. Okay, but you want to be sure that people in your township are sheltered, that they have housing, and that they are not evicted with no place to go. That just contributes to other problems. So if our job is to keep them sheltered, another way to look at it is, at least in common terms with agencies here, is preventing evictions or keeping housing stable. All these terms come down to what makes the most sense, both for the household and for the township in this situation, in order to keep them with shelter. Connie,
One of the things, yes, one of the things Center Township does, Debbie touched on, if someone was, say, 6, 7, 8 months behind in rent and they came to us, our township would deny them for not being the most economical way to relieve the client. However, we may also contact that landlord to see if we could set up a payment agreement with them. Okay, we'll to keep them in there, we'll pay, say, 2 months rent. And then if they continue to comply, we can come in and they can continue to come in and we could continue to assist them. And if they're working, say, hey, once you pay 1 month's rent, we'll pay another month's rent until we can get you caught up so that they aren't evicted and they aren't on the streets.
Mhm.
But if that's not an option, you can tell the client, hey, you need to go out and find another place to live. Once you do that, come back with the landlord's name and address, and we may be able to help with your first month's rent to get you into that place.
Very good. Very good.
Also, if the person is evicted and they go stay with someone outside of your township, that does not mean they're a resident of that township. They need to come back to you because that's their last legal.
Nope. You just got muted. Okay. All right, folks, we're rounding the corner here and we're going to talk real quick about appeals. Appeals go to the county commissioners or their hearing office. And just so you know, they are required to use your township standards, as long as they are, comply with state and federal law. They are to use the township's standards when making a determination, right? And then you also have the option to appeal. If they overturn the trustee, you can appeal that. But the key to winning an appeal is document everything. Whatever comes your way, just document it. And again, on that TA1A, that notice of determination, please be very specific about why they're being denied, what your expectations are going forward. If they wasted resources and you can't help them understand what they need to do if they want to get assistance in the future. All right. So make these things very clear on the TA1A. And that is one of the fastest presentations on these things that we've ever done. And we have just a few minutes for any questions, outstanding questions out there. Anyone? Okay.
It looks like Yolanda asked, if someone is evicted, moves to Ohio with a family member, do they come back to the previous township?
Connie?
If they're wanting to move back here, yes. If they've had their benefits transferred to Ohio, then I would say no. But then you're also going to have to get into asking the question, is that family member offering free housing? Are they going to walk away from that? You would just really have to dig into that and see the situation. If that family can go and stay there with a family member, then I would say they need to stay there.
Okay. All right. Appreciate you all. Really do. And again, this recording will be available to you here in the week or so on the website in the Member Center. And it's good to see you. We'll see you next month. Remember, it's always the second Thursday of the month at 10 o'clock Eastern Daylight Saving Time. So see you then. Bye. Thanks, Connie. Appreciate you. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Anthony and Cyan.
You're welcome.